Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Now then, what we're going to talk about in this video, or what I'm going to tell you about in this video, and I hope you'll make comments as we go, is a case that we haven't looked at for a little while. And this is, of course, the missing teenager, Sebastian Rogers. And this is another one of those very mysterious cases. Sebastian, 15 years old when he went missing. He's now been missing. Is it 2 years now? I mean, it just seems incredible that this poor boy has been missing all this time. And his family, his mum, Katie, his stepdad, Chris, and his biological dad, um, Seth Rogers, just don't have any answers. Ever since Sebastian went missing, there literally has been nothing. I mean, there's been a lot of chatter. You know, we've talked about it a lot on my channel. But Sebastian has not been seen since February the 25th. So we're coming up to yet another anniversary. It's not that long before it'll be another year's anniversary. He was seen on last seen February the 25th, 2024, in the area of Stafford Court in Hendersonville, Tennessee. Since then, nothing. So I think what we'll do first of all, we'll have a look at the FBI. Now, he's on the FBI most wanted, which is quite strange, I always think. You always think of most wanted would be people who've done something wrong. But of course, Sebastian hasn't done anything wrong. He's just missing. And there he is. These are the photos that have been released. Some of these, are quite a few years ago. This is probably the most recent one. So he was 15 when he went missing, so he was, a teenager, a young teenager, if you like. Let's just have a look at the. So this is the missing poster. Date of birth, December the 7th, 2008. So he's just had another birthday there in December. Eyes brown or hazel, weight 120 pounds, race white, hair blonde or brown, height 5'5", and sex male. And the FBI is offering a reward of up to $50,000 for information leading to the whereabouts of Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers. Now, I'm not going to talk about, in this video, I've talked about it before in other videos. Of course, you've got Dog the Bounty Hunter, who's put out this £250,000 reward. At Night Creative Intelligence Agency, Nick the Hat, Hong, all those strange people. But I'm not going to talk about that because I don't feel that that's real life. But the FBI, that is real life. They've got a reward of $50,000. But despite all these rewards, despite the fact this has probably been one of the most high-profile missing persons cases of the last couple of years, it's been talked about on YouTube. His biological dad, Seth, has got his own YouTube channel where he's talked about it. In the beginning, Katie's mum and Chris's stepdad, they were on a lot of YouTube channels. There's been interviews, there's been lie detector tests. You name it, there's been it. But it hasn't yielded any clues as to what happened to this boy, where he is. There's been false sightings. It just must be awful for all this family. Because the other sad thing, though, of course, about this case with Sebastian is there is no, love lost between Katie's mum and her new husband, Chris, and her ex-husband, Sebastian's dad, Seth. There's a lot of animosity, especially from Seth's side. I think Seth probably feels, he went missing on Katie's watch. So basically what happened was, apparently they went out for a normal Sunday, bowling, something to eat afterwards, went home, Sebastian went to bed. Katie was chatting to her husband, Chris, who was working away at the time. She heard a noise upstairs. She shouted up. He said he was fine. And she said, oh, well, get to bed, blah, blah, blah. You've got school in the morning, that kind of thing. But she didn't actually see him. She spoke to him, according to her. And then the next morning when she went to get him up for school, he was gone, vanished, poof. Yeah. And we don't really, there's nothing concrete since then. There's a lot of talk, a lot of talk on YouTube channels, etc. But really, there are no leads, official leads. So apparently he was wearing a black sweatshirt, black sweatpants, black square-ringed framed glasses. He has medical conditions, including autism, that may impair his ability to return safely without assistance. And then it tells you there what to do if you have any information. But of course, you're looking at a long time now with no information whatsoever. It's coming up to 2 years that this boy has been missing. Where is he? Anyway, what I'm going to talk about in this video is there's a private investigator who was contracted by Katie and Chris, Sebastian's mum and stepfather. And he's conducted or commissioned quite a few searches for this boy. And just recently on X, he's come out talking about, let's have a look at Steve Fisher, actually. We've talked about him before. I personally have a lot of respect for Steve. He's been instrumental in finding many missing people that we've talked about. He's not a YouTuber, he doesn't do YouTube, but he's got an X account. It's where I follow him. He's been very instrumental in giving us information about the Celeste Rivas case. Let's have a look at some photos of him. Yeah, so this is Steve. And yeah, he goes out there searching for people, or he commissions people like in this that we're going to talk about today. Commissions search agencies to search for people, and I've got nothing but respect for him. I think he quite often, although he's not a YouTuber, quite often appears on YouTube crime channels like Nancy Grace, News Nation, etc., because he is a credible person to talk about cases. Recently he's been very involved with the Celeste Rivas case, that's another one we still don't know anything about, isn't it? Still no arrests made there. I was hoping for an arrest in the new year, but here we are, 13th of January, and still no arrest as far as David and Celeste is concerned. Anyway, that's not the only case I've heard him talk about. Recently he was talking about he gets information because he is respected. People ask him to help, to look for people or look for or investigate into things. I think he's got a lot of credibility, which is why this struck me when he put this on X the other day. Now, what I'm going to read to you today is something that he put on X, and it's a search that he commissioned in April last year. for Sebastian. Let's have a look. So it's a report. Now, the reason he said he's sharing it, because obviously he's had this for a long time, but apparently it was leaked on Twitter. Sorry, not Twitter, TikTok. So he has released it because it's been leaked anyway, because he didn't want it to be leaked in a way, in a bad way, if you like, or any false information going out there. He wanted full sort of disclosure rather than somebody leaking it and it not being accurate. So I'll say it's from April last year. So we've got to keep that in mind as we, let's see, where is he? Because I want to read out the post he put up. Let's have a look. Yeah. So, this is what he said. Recently, portions of a report from a search we conducted for Sebastian Rogers involving multiple HRD K9 teams was leaked online. For the sake of transparency, I have decided to release the entire report. The search was conducted in April 2025 and involved multiple highly accredited HRD canines and handlers from out of state who I retained at my discretion to assist in the search. We also coordinated with federal authorities who granted us permission and access to closed federal land and accompanied our search efforts. And once the 38-page report was completed, it was immediately provided to all law enforcement and emergency management agencies involved in the case. Now, bearing in mind that this is April last year, so nothing, of course, has transpired. If you have questions regarding the report, please direct them to me. Do not contact the canine handlers. They were retained to conduct a professional search and generate a report for me, which they did. Due to our confidentiality agreement, they can only respond to me. They are professionals and are not accustomed to, nor should they be subjected to, the chaos and antics that some individuals have brought into this case. Well, of course, it did sort of get like that at one point, wasn't it? Seems to have quietened down a little bit now, but we have never stopped searching for Sebastian and never will. We have simply chosen not to publicly detail our ongoing efforts due to the actions of a small group of individuals whose behaviour has caused harm and division in Sebastian's case. And then he goes on to give the link to the full report. And he says the only redactions made are the handlers' last names, phone numbers and email addresses. This information may be easy to find online, but reposting it is not a flex or an act of investigation, is a sign of disrespect and disregard for Sebastian and the professionals working to help bring him home. Yeah, 100%. I mean, he's released this report. I'm going to go through this report with you, but, you know, we're not in the business of trying to expose canine handlers or dox them, you know, or whatever they've released. They've done this report. They're professional people that made this report is the outcome of what they found. And unfortunately, it does seem that since April, nothing has, it hasn't solved the case, but it's probably given some sort of an insight, hasn't it, one way or another. So that's what we're going to read, or what I'm going to read to you. Now you can see there's an index, a table of contents, background, personnel, and you can see the surnames have been redacted. The search operations, soil tests, findings, the different places they went to, Old Hickory Dam, Manskakeet, Cumberland River, these references, etc. There's photos at the end, and we're going to look at all those, okay, but I'm not going to read out the index because we'll go through it as we can. So the date was April the 12th, 13th, 2025. Personnel were Roy and Alex. The K9s were Seven and Rambo. The requesting party was Private Investigator Steve Fisher. So the objective, we can see there, is to conduct a systematic HRD K9 search across designated sites to identify potential human decomposition related odour, remains, and collect soil samples for chemical testing. Now, I'm just checking that's showing. Yes, it is. So that's the objective. And they went to, it tells you all the different places they went to, and whether, as far as the dogs were concerned, you know, and we have to remember, this doesn't mean necessarily that there was human decomposition there, but it means that dogs detected it. You know, I think you have to trust cadaver dogs. You know, they're trained, and if they do pick up on something, I think there's a reason for it, you know, whatever that reason might be. Now, I don't know how long smells like that would stay, you know, for a dog to detect. I actually don't know how long that would, you know, how long would, so because this was done over a year later from when Sebastian disappeared. So if Sebastian had been there, or, you know, Sebastian's body, you know, sorry to say that, I hate to say that, but we've got to be realistic. This boy's been missing a long time. You can't imagine, unless he was actually abducted or ran away, how could he still be alive somewhere? So the retention pond, the area was determined to be negative for human decomposition, odour or remains. Now, don't forget, they did drain the retention pond and check it. Retention pond 2. So I don't know which retention pond they drained. Have they drained all of these? I didn't realise there was more than one. But pond 2 was determined to be negative for human decomposition, odour or remains. Retention pond 3, again, negative. But you know what's interesting then? The construction site north of the retention pond, this area was determined to be positive for human decomposition, odour and potential remains. Now, there's been a lot of talk about that construction site, hasn't there? You know, a lot of people wondered if Sebastian had had an accident and then been covered over by you know, construction works, you know, because of construction work. Is that a possibility? You know, have they been searched properly? Anyway, at the end of the day, I don't know. None of us know. If we knew it, I wouldn't be here reading this out for you. But it's interesting, isn't it, that it was determined to be, I'm just reading out the facts from this report. And then Manska Creek, the area was determined to be positive for human decomposition, odour and potential remains. And then the Old Hickory Dam, also the area was determined to be positive for human decomposition odour. Now, why could that be if there was no body there? You know, they didn't find a body, anybody. So, you know, just food for thought, isn't it? Why did the dogs pick up? Then the Old Hickory Dam Southwest was negative. Cumberland River was determined to be negative. Then they took some soil tests, and the controls were negative, negative, negative. Then another, they're all negative actually. So all the soil tests, the Schiff's Regent soil tests were negative. But despite negative aldehyde results, the presence of an adipocere-like substance in test sample 2 warrants further investigation, according to Steve, because this is Steve who's put the report together. Additional analytic testing and non-invasive surveys, e.g. GPR, are recommended before determining whether excavation is justified. Excavation, it's a big thing, isn't it? How do you get the police to excavate? And these are his recommendations, that on the construction site they should use ground penetrating radar and FTIR to identify the unknown substance in the soil sample. And in Manska Creek, he was recommending underwater recovery methods and a recovery diver. I don't know if any of that was done. Anyway, nothing's covered. So it's important to remember that all this, I'm reading at you for information, but nothing has been found. Whether the police investigate further, I don't know. But it's important, obviously there's been no news about Sebastian. Now, there was a body found actually about a week ago. There were human remains found in Tennessee, but we've not heard any more about it, about whether it was anything to do with Sebastian or, of course, there's lots of missing children in that area. Summer Wells is another high-profile one. We feel sort of keep saying there's going to be a break in the Summer Wells case, and it doesn't quite happen. You get this sort of flurry of excitement, when the police, because these cases, they are still active. We must never think that the police have forgotten about Sebastian or Summer or any other missing child. It feels like a cold case at times, doesn't it? But I doubt very much that it is. They would look. The thing we have to remember is, I'm sure the actual law enforcement themselves, they would love to solve these cases. They're normally parents themselves, don't forget. So just on that, just on a human level, but also, because they want to solve these cases. It's not that they don't want to solve them. They're not cover-ups by the police. I don't think, anyway. Not, I don't think that one for one moment. They would love to solve these cases, but they're just proving, for whatever reason, practically impossible to solve at the moment. So on February the 20th, 2025, DNA K9 received a request for assistance from licensed private investigator Steve Fisher, Tennessee PI license 9101, to conduct a private missing person search in Sumner County, Tennessee. The subject of the search was 16-year-old Sebastian Wayne Drake Rogers, so he'd become 16 by then, who was reported missing during the night of February the 25th, 2024. At the time of the request, Sebastian had been missing for nearly 1 year, had not been seen or heard from since his disappearance, and was presumed deceased, for the purpose of initiating a forensic search through DNA K9. I think, he is presumed deceased, and that's so very sad. But maybe his family don't. I know Seth would hate that. I feel for Seth, I feel for Katie, I feel for Chris, I feel for all of them. I don't think any of them had anything to do with the disappearance of this boy. I don't know what happened, but what does make me sad is I wish they could come together. The way, I think this can quite often happen, can't it, with tragedies? Sometimes it brings families together, even if they are families that have been estranged. but that hasn't happened in this case. It's actually drove them apart. DNA K9 agreed to assist in the search for Sebastian and began by conducting comprehensive background research into the case. This included a review of prior search efforts, their findings, and the areas that had already been covered. Based on the information gathered, search areas were prioritised according to their likelihood of yielding potential evidence or human remains. Key locations included the construction site near Sebastian's home on Stafford Court, which featured 3 ponds. I really do believe Sebastian is close by there somewhere. I don't believe he ran off. Maybe he did. I mean, I think we have to remember that Sebastian was 15, so it's not like little children like Summer or, of course, Gus Lamont over in Australia. I mean, he was 15 years old, and a 15-year-old can, even if he did have mild autism, a 15-year-old can operate, independently of their parents. So it's not impossible to think he may not have run away, but let's not forget, supposedly he wasn't wearing any shoes. This is what's strange, isn't it? If he wasn't wearing shoes and he didn't take his phone with him and stuff, would he have run? I can't imagine a teenager running away without their shoes or without their phone. Anyway, additional priority areas identified for further search efforts included the shoreline on the northeast side of Old Hickory Dam opposite Old Hickory Lock, the shoreline and wooded area on the southwest side of the dam, near the boat launch, Mansker Creek, and natural catch points along the Cumberland River. So now it's talking about the personnel. So Alex, again, surname redacted, has been actively involved in search and rescue since 2018, following an apprenticeship with Don Abney, a court-certified expert in canine training, through the Criminal District Court of New Orleans, and owner of Abcantrat Training Kennel in Abita Springs, LA. Alex is a member of the Forensic Applied Sciences and Technology Division of Peace River, and recently earned a Bachelor of Science in Forensic Science, with a concentration in anthropology and a minor in biology from the Honors College at the University of Southern Mississippi. Alex leads research and development initiatives aimed at advancing human remains detection capabilities, training methodologies, decomposition odor analysis, and the interactions between human decomposition and the environment. So, of course, it's not an exact science. The cadaver dogs are brilliant, but, at the end of the day, they pick up on things, but the handler has to interpret what they do. It isn't an exact science. But I think really, you've got to trust more or less 99% a cadaver dog, really. In addition to these efforts, he participates in human remains recovery fieldwork under the supervision of USM Anthropology and provides HRD canine search services for the Forest County Sheriff's Office and surrounding law enforcement agencies. Alex also serves as an instructor, canine trainer, and professional consultant in human remains detection and forensic anthropology, offering expertise to civilian search and rescue teams, government agencies, academic institutions, and forensic professionals. Then the next one is a guy called Roy. He's a training instructor and has over 18 years of experience in canine training across multiple disciplines with a focus on water search and recovery operations. He has served in various leadership and instructional roles. including search manager, training officer, instructor, evaluator for the National Search Dog Alliance and the National Association for Search and Rescue. Roy has also served in operational roles as a canine handler supporting investigations with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. In addition, he provides consulting services and conducts training seminars and workshops for canine teams. He has previously led a biomedical detection canine program, has contributed to published research, and continues to assist civilian and law enforcement agencies across the United States and Canada with investigative support. So, human remains detection canines, DNA canine operational criteria. All canines deployed by DNA Canine have successfully completed a comprehensive training program and passed a rigorous annual validation assessment developed by DNA Canine specifically for the discipline of forensic human remains detection. This assessment is designed to simulate real-world conditions and address the challenges typically encountered during forensic human remains searches. The training and validation process is conducted in accordance with ANSI ASB Standard 088 and ASB Standard 076, with additional requirements informed by applied search conducted at the University of Southern Mississippi from 2020 to 2023. So the program is built upon current forensic science and canine detection training best practices. It incorporates a broader scope of training and more concentrated evaluation criteria than any other currently available civilian certification standard, ensuring both operational readiness and scientific integrity in forensic canine deployments. The following criteria highlight the key areas of focus and achievement within our program. So they have successfully differentiated between decomposing animal remains and human remains. They accurately discriminate between modern embalmed burials and recent human decomposition. They have proven capability to detect low-level and trace decomposition odors. They've completed counter-training to mitigate handler influence, cueing, and body language interference. They've demonstrated detection capability in contaminated environments. They've demonstrated detection and problem-solving capabilities in scenario-based attempted concealment training. They've effectively detected buried human decomposition through surface vegetation. They've met detection criteria across all stages of soft tissue decomposition, blood, adipose hair. Now, I'm not sure what adipose hair is. Let's have a look, shall we, what it is? What is adipose hair? Oh, it's a little bit grim, this, just to warn. I mean, it's not, graphic, but anyway, it's grave wax or corpse wax, a waxy greyish white substance formed from the decomposition of body fat in corpses, especially moist, low oxygen environments like underwater or buried in wet soil. It's a natural process, a type of saponification, and it involves bacteria breaking down fats into fatty acids, which then react with alkaline substances to form soap-like compounds, effectively preserving the shape of fatty tissues like the face, breasts, and abdomen. Oh dear. Sorry. Sorry. While it preserves features, adipose complicates determining the time since death. Interesting. Yes, I mean it's not very nice, is it? But at the end of the day, this is what if man is born and then he returns to the earth, and woman. We don't like to think of these kind of things, but this is what helps in murder investigations, doesn't it? Or not always a murder, is it? People go missing, have accidents, get found. It helps to determine causes of death, I suppose, and how long somebody's been there, etc. And you know what? It's not the sort of thing that I could do, like be a forensic investigator, or pathologist, etc. But thank God somebody does it. It's a job. It's a job, a necessary job, isn't it? And the people have a very big responsibility to families when bodies are found. These are the people that give the family the answers that they need. So thank God somebody does it. Where are we? Yeah, so these dogs have met detection criteria across all stages of soft tissue decomposition, blood, adipose, skeletal remains, water decomposition, burial decomposition, and burned remains. Gosh, it's like it's quite a grim job. It's not very nice, is it? What they're looking for, if they're looking for remains. Thank God they do it. Thank God they do it. Proven, so they've also, these dogs, it's just explaining the attributes of the dogs at the moment, what they're capable of. They've proven operational suitability across diverse environments, including wilderness, elevated terrain, shorelines, buildings, and vehicle searches. So then you go on to talk about the dogs. Seven is a 3-year-old border collie trained in forensic human remains detection. She has passed validation testing through DNA canine with her handler Roy in 2003, 4, and 5. They're so brilliant dogs, aren't they? What would we do? My little dog, well, I say my little dog, my big dog sat there agreeing with me. Yeah, you're talking to me, aren't you? She likes to talk to me sometimes when I'm on making a video. Yeah, dogs are brilliant. I mean, because these, of course, are dogs that are trained to find remains, but there's dogs trained to find, follow trails, find living people. Then there's dogs trained to find now electrical items like SIM cards and stuff like that. I mean, there's no limit. Yes, I know you're all very clever. You're very clever. All your sort of brothers and sisters are clever. You're not that clever. Sure. No, she's not very good at sniffing things out, to be honest. I wouldn't say she'd make a. I mean, she's a German Shepherd, but she's not the best. Oh, sorry. Oh God, she's really talking to me. So 7, and then Rambo. Rambo is a 6-year-old Catahoula leopard dog. Wow. Trained in forensic human remains detection and has passed validation testing through DNA canine with his handler Alex in 2022, 23, 24, and 25. So these dogs, it's ongoing. Their training is ongoing. They have to keep being assessed. So what's the next thing? So that's the team and the dogs. And this is now we're going to talk about the search operation. So on April the 12th at 8 a.m. Oh gosh, a long day from 8 a.m. in the morning to 19:45 to 7:45 in the evening. They searched retention point Pond 1. Roy and Alex were provided with an initial meeting location at 3031 Long Hollow Pike, Hendersonville. Hendersonville. They arrived at 8 to meet with Private Investigator Steve Fisher, receive a briefing, and discuss strategy and objectives for the day. Following the briefing, DNA K9 accompanied Fisher to the Laurel Park neighborhood and proceeded to the first designated search area, a retention pond located at the construction site. A cemetery was observed spanning the area to the north and east, just beyond the retention pond, while HRD canines may detect odors associated with modern burials. The scent profile differs significantly from that of natural surface or subsurface decomposition. This difference is due to the embalming and preparation processes used for modern burials, as well as the containment of remains within caskets and underground burial vaults. Consequently, this type of odour is not part of the training for the canines and did not elicit an alert from Canine 7. Roy deployed Canine 7 to search for the odour of human decomposition around the perimeter, including the culvert, water's edge, and adjacent drainage areas. Canine 7 did not indicate the presence of human decomposition odour, and the area was determined to be negative at the time of search. Okay, now I don't think I need to go into all the details. So retention pond 2 was also negative, wasn't it? Retention 3 was negative. The construction site, let's see. Oh, look, here's some photos. Oh, so there was an area of interest here indicated. Yeah. So where was that on the construction site? Yes, on the construction site. Yeah. So approximately 20 meters from the fence line at the end of the drainage, Canine 7 exhibited a change in behavior, reducing her pace and tasting blades of grass. Typical indicators for canines when searching areas with low threshold odor. She was then directed to perform a detailed search between the slope and the fence line where several baseballs, there's some photos of them, were observed. While her demeanor remained consistent, she continued to search. She alerted at 2 separate locations within 1 to 2 meters of each other along the slope. These locations were marked as sites 1 and 2 for the soil test, and afterwards Canine 7 was given a break for rest away from the search area. When they returned to the area of interest, the wind conditions had changed and there was no observable wind presence in the area. Canine 7 was deployed from a different direction, travelling north to south, and the handler ensured ample space for her to work. She proceeded with the search and displayed typical in-odour behaviour. Canine 7 then showed a strong indication to enter the private property immediately west of the area of interest. The handler intervened, preventing her from continuing onto the private property. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? So there's your photo of interest that was indicated by her. What's this? So this, yeah, couldn't be under there, could he? Photograph of area of interest indicated by Canine 7. Note the observable difference in vegetative growth between the location of canine alert and the remainder of the landscape. It does look different, look. Yeah. Well, the thing is, he's turned this over to the police, so I presume maybe they have searched it. I don't know. And here's another photo of the interest indicated by K97. The photograph depicts the centre of an area marked by an existing wooden stake. Note that the vegetative growth difference between left and right sides of landscape and the location where K97 performed 2 alerts just below and to the right of the wooden stake. I mean, yeah, interesting. And this is a photograph depicting the area of interest as indicated by K97. Note that alerts were concentrated behind a single property where K97 attempted to access the yard through the fence. They tried to get to that property. The dog tried to get to it. Very interesting. Notable vegetative differentiation is present with reduced growth on both the left and right sides of the area. This location corresponds to 2 alerts made by the K9, both indicating the potential presence of human decomposition odour. Well, it's got to be something, hasn't it? I mean, I wonder what investigations were done as a result of these searches. Yeah, and they found these baseballs, which of course, probably someone's been out there playing baseball. That's not necessarily anything to do with Sebastian, is it? But having said that, they were found between the construction site and the fence line where K97 performed an alert indicating that she detected the presence of human decomposition odour. So the baseballs were found around about where she alerted. Here's a photograph of a baseball on the slope of the hill in front of the fence line, where she performed an alert indicating that she detected the odour of human decomposition. Well, you can't imagine that Sebastian was out playing baseball in the middle of the night, or that's just got to be a coincidence where kids probably go out there and play baseball, and then of course, the actual place where they play baseball may be quite far from there, but just one good hit with a baseball bat. Anyway, it's interesting, isn't it? So soil samples were collected by Alex at a depth of approximately 4 inches from the following locations. A control sample containing only distilled water and Schiff's reagent was prepared to assess reagent reliability, and a control sample was collected at the edge of the road near the gates between the Laurel Park subdivision construction zone and Kelling Drive to assess environmental aldehyde contamination. And a test sample was collected on the hill between the construction zone and the fence line where the dog had performed an alert, and a test sample was collected on the hill, all the places where the dog had performed an alert, and also at the base of the hill next to the fence line where K97 had attempted to cross. So it's difficult, isn't it? Because you can't go onto private property, can you? So apparently, Schiff's reagent is a solution that will combine chemically with aldehydes to form a bright red product. You add a small amount of soil to a test tube, add enough distilled water to create a water layer over the soil and gently mix. You allow the soil to settle for a few minutes and add 1 to 2 drops of Schiff's reagent, and the water will turn red in 1 to 2 minutes if aldehydes are present. Compare it to a control sample If multiple sites, look for highest concentration, darkest red colour. Now, I don't think I mentioned, but Steve Fisher was contracted by Katie and Chris that he was working for at the time. He did these searches. I don't think he's working with them anymore. I don't know. But just to let you know that it was Katie and Chris that commissioned him to help in the search. Soil test results, they were collected, processed and analysed. What was the result? So apparently this test does not distinguish between human and animal decomposition, but a positive result suggests the likelihood of a decomposition event. Let's have a look. It goes on to talk about the actual process, the actual test and its limitations. It's the results really, isn't it? That we want. So the results. All soil samples tested using shifts region yielded negative results with no colour change indicative of aldehyde presence observed. So they did prove negative. Okay. However, during post-test cleanup, an unidentified whitish-yellow waxy substance was discovered, adhering to the interior of one of the test tubes used during soil sample processing. The physical appearance of the material was consistent with adipose air, that's what we looked at earlier, which is a wax-like byproduct of decomposition, resulting from the saponification of fatty tissues under specific environmental conditions. Although its morphology was suggestive, no confirmatory testing was performed on site and the substance could not be conclusively identified at the time of the discovery. It was contained, documented and preserved for potential laboratory analysis. Future testing using Fourier transform infrared spectroscopy is recommended to assess the presence of fatty acids which may support identification as an adipose air. So this is the substance that was discovered. So the interpretation, while the Schiff's reagent tests yielded negative results, the discovery of a substance consistent in appearance with adipose air introduces the possibility that a burial and decomposition event may have occurred in the area. However, due to the lack of confirmatory chemical analysis and the inconclusive results of the soil testing, the presence of human decomposition could not be verified. Therefore, excavation is not recommended at this time. Yeah. Nevertheless, the findings warrant further investigation. Then they went to Mansker Creek. And there were K97 demonstrated a change of behaviour consistent with detection of human decomposition odour. A trail leading into the water was observed in the proximity of the area of interest. The boat was driven back upstream towards the tree, completely in the water about 10 metres upstream of the marked tyre. K97 was observed going in and out of odour, consistent with the previous pass. A third pass was made to another tree, completely in the river on the other side, and K97 demonstrated consistent change of behaviour. Now, Sebastian was autistic, and autistic children, they do tend to go for water, don't they? It's quite often that you hear, unfortunately, very sadly, of autistic children going missing, running off and ending up in water. The area between the trail and the river right was determined to be an area of interest recommended for further investigation with an ROV. There it is. Dear me. Oh, so sad, Sebastian. Where are you? Where are you? Where are you? I mean, how could this boy just disappear in the middle of the night? I know there's a lot of people out there who think that maybe Katie and Chris had something to do with it. I just don't believe that for a minute. I literally just don't believe it. I think something happened to this boy. I think he went out and he either met foul play or an accident, or he may even have been lured out. You just don't know with teenagers. I wonder if the police probably do know more, don't they? But photograph of ROV at the site of interest in Mansker Creek, and note that K9 performed an alert on it after it was brought out of the water. Did Sebastian end up in the water? Just a mystery, isn't it? That's another Christmas that Sebastian's family have gone through without Sebastian. And it's difficult because Seth doesn't have any other children, does he? Bless him, he's only got Sebastian, which makes it, not that having other children helps if one child goes missing, but Katie and Chris, they have Faith. Is it Faith, I think she's called, isn't she? Chris's daughter. So they have to make Christmas good for her. At least it gives you something to concentrate on. Whereas I don't know what Seth did at Christmas. I hope he's, found some sort of romantic company or whatever he had done. I don't know if he's still. I don't know what his personal life is, but I hope he has. I hope he has found somebody. So the dog performed an alert on the remote operated vehicle after it came out of the water. And this is the trail that leads in. The trail leading from the embankment into the creek. Yeah, look, you can see it clearly there, can't you? There is a little trail. So then they went to the Army Corps of Engineers, the old Hickory Dam northeast, and a shoreline search was conducted. Began at the edge of the rock wall along the shoreline, and K97 was directed to search all sections from the water's edge to approximately 50 metres inland. Now, don't forget, as we're going along here, let me know your thoughts. What do you think happened to Sebastian? Do you think he will ever be found? Do you think Katie and Chris had something to do with this disappearance? Some people do. I just don't see that there's any. I don't get them all of them, Katie, Chris, and Seth. They've all done lie detector tests apparently, and they've all passed. No arrests have been made. No suspects have been named. Anyway, no behaviours indicative of human decomposition odour were observed until the team reached an area approximately 50 metres from the dams restricted. At that time, the wind was steady from the south-southwest. From the top of the hillside, about 2 miles per hour. From the top of the hillside, K97 was drawn towards the lower sections near the water's edge, and it was recommended that Fisher deploy the ROV for visual confirmation. And during that investigation, a canoe was observed lodged in the strainer above the dam with a group of vultures perched on logs next to the canoe. The vultures were observed consuming something, but the identity of it could not be determined. Well, the thing is that that's not going to be Sebastian over a year later, is it? That probably would not be anything to do with Sebastian, would it? Anyway, the Army Corps of Engineers Ranger was made aware of this and attempted to take a closer inspection, but he could not visually identify anything recognizable as human remains from a distance. The presence of human decomposition odor at that location may indicate a complex search environment, while K97 can detect the odor of human decomposition. Pinpointing the precise source can be challenging when physical accessibility to the area is limited. Gosh, all that water. So this is the search area above Old Hickory Dam. And this is a photograph of the search area above Old Hickory Dam. Oh, that water is just such a big expanse of water, isn't it? You think, just supposing Sebastian had gone into that water, how could they ever find him? Oh, and this was the vultures eating something, but they couldn't access it, close up to find out where it was. So a search for human remains was conducted by K9 Rambo and handler Alex on the west side of Old Hickory Dam, focusing on the area surrounding the boat launch and adjacent recreational park. And the designated search zone included a man-made rocky shoreline near Old Hickory Lock, transitioning into a natural shoreline characterized by sand, soil, rock, and accumulated debris deposited by the Cumberland River. Gosh, the Cumberland River, that sort of reminds me, because of course this is not far from, remember when we covered the case of Riley Strain, bless him, who'd gone out with his mates, hadn't he, and either had too much to drink or been spiked, I'm still not certain. And then he'd got thrown out of the bar that they were in and he ended up in the Cumberland River, didn't he? And there was a big search for him for a long time. And then finally someone who was working on the river found him. This is what quite often happens, isn't it? We had it with, oh gosh, what was the young lad who disappeared? And they found him in like a water, it seems like he went down a manhole or something. His remains were found a long time after. Gosh, I can't remember his name. That makes me feel awful. I can see his face. There are a lot of pictures of him he liked fishing, didn't there? A lot of pictures of him with big fishes. Anyway, he wasn't found till a long time after he went missing. And it seems that he went, they say there was no foul play, but anyway, what can you say? But he'd ended up, apparently, fell down a manhole, they said, and ended up in like a water sort of containment unit, and someone working there found him. And it was someone who was working that found a Riley Strain in the Cumberland River. Is that something that might happen with Sebastian one day? I mean, I hope they do find him one way or another, because the family deserve answers, don't they? So K9 Rambo was deployed from the parking area near the boat ramp and proceeded down the ramp to the shoreline. The K9 entered the water and actively searched. What the hell was that? You hear that noise then? I've no idea what that was. The dog's looking over in the corner as well. Oh my god. Oh, yeah, what was that? What was that, Tia? Gosh, what was that? Dear me. The canine entered the water and actively searched along the land-water interface, working approximately 20 metres along the shoreline while searching for the odour of human decomposition. Once the team was no longer able to traverse the shoreline on foot due to challenging terrain, they turned around and continued the search along the section of shoreline located between the beach and the rocky hillside, conducting a loose line search method. Upon returning to land, K9 Rambo and handler Alex continued the search along the perimeter of the parking area where storm debris had been deposited, either through natural water flow or mechanical displacement. The search route progressed towards a nearby hillside, which the team ascended, continuing their search along the ridgeline and extending approximately 10 metres into the wooded area beyond, which followed a gradual downward slope. While various indicators of recent human activity were observed, including articles of clothing, none was assessed as relevant based on their apparent condition, because they suggested recent deposition and did not match any known items associated with Sebastian as outlined in the pre-search briefing. At no point during this portion of the search did K9 Rambo exhibit or alert or demonstrate a change in behaviour consistent with the detection of human decomposition odour. Following completion of his efforts, the dog was returned to the vehicle for rest. Handler Alex then continued with visual search operations along the man-made rocky shoreline near Old Hickory Lock, the adjacent shoreline, and the nearby wooded area. And during this continued investigation, multiple bones were discovered, including vertebrae, but each specimen was carefully examined in the field to assess potential human origin, and based on morphological characteristics, the bones were determined to be non-human and were returned to their original location within the wooded area near the boat ramp. Additional bones, including several long bones identified as deer remains and a raccoon skull, were also located in the vicinity. Due to the unusual concentration of skeletal material, Alex conducted a detailed inspection of the area. That's strange, isn't it? An unusual concentration of skeletal material. Carefully removing surface debris and duff to expose and examine partially buried elements. No human remains were located, and all bones observed were determined to be non-human in origin. Yeah, quite a lot of bones in one place, I suppose. Manska Creek. A targeted search was conducted along the west side of Manska Creek, directly below Old Hickory Dam, in response to a positive indication by a certified human remains detection canine. The canine exhibited trained alert behaviour over a specific area within the creek, prompting further investigation. Due to the aquatic environment and limited accessibility, a remotely operated vehicle was deployed to survey the area. However, visibility was severely compromised by the highly turbid water conditions and the presence of loose sediment, which was easily disturbed during ROV manoeuvring. These factors significantly limited real-time visual assessment during deployment. Could do it with one of those aqua eyes, couldn't they? Remember when we had Rebecca Ramsey and Phil from Beneath the Surface talking about the aqua eyes. I wonder if they would help with that sort of thing. Despite these challenges, still images extracted from the ROV's video footage were reviewed and analysed by Alex due to her specialisation in forensic anthropology. Oh, Alex is a girl. Oh, good. Well done. That's awful that I just assumed it was a guy. Of course, Alex is a man or a woman's name. So that was bad of me. My bad. Select stills have been included in this report, though no definitive human skeletal material could be confirmed from the imagery alone. Further investigation of this site is warranted, utilising alternative methods of underwater recovery. Ah. So, but don't forget, for any, this was April last year, nothing else has been. Now, look, this is a still from the vehicle which depicts potential skeletal remains. What do you think? I don't think that looks to me. I'm not an expert, they're the experts, so they'd know if there were potential skeletal remains or not. But to me, they look almost too uniform. Skeletal chest cavity, I presume they mean, that I've seen like on various crime things. Unfortunately, I've seen them. They're not quite as uniform as that, but who knows? Who knows? There it is again, look. Yeah, do you see it's sort of, it's too big, is it? But I don't know what the coordinates are. I don't know what the measurements would be. Potential skeletal remains. Possibly. It doesn't look curved enough. It looks more like a pallet to me or something. But as I say, I'm not the expert. These guys are the experts. What's that? So this is another one depicting potential skeletal remains in a debris field to the right of the previous. Oh, what is that? Is it that? Is that possibly a skull? That does look like a possible skeleton, doesn't it? If that's the skull and that was the chest. But it could be that, what is it, pareidolia or whatever it's called, where you see things that aren't there. But that does look a little bit like a skull. But surely the police will have gone in there and checked that out by now. So it's nearly a year ago that this report was made. Anyway, I just want to say as well, as we're coming to the end of this report, they're still searching. They've never given up searching. I mean, they're not searching day in, day out, because he has other cases going on and other things happening. But the searches for Sebastian do continue. They haven't forgotten about him. His case is still being investigated. We must, and the same with Summer. Well, we saw Summer Wells. We saw that recently. There was a bit of a development, wasn't it? That it turned out the police had gone to search that house. Again, nothing's happened since then, so it perhaps didn't yield any fruit. But these things, they show that these investigations, they're still continuing. I don't think these investigations ever close properly. So what's this? Another still showing potential skeletal remains on the bottom left corner of the image. Or like leg bones, I presume, is it? Or potentially. This must have been checked out. Well, the other problem, of course, that we have to remember, I've seen this on a crime video that I watched, they don't stay in one place. So, this water is very fast flowing. So when that ROV went in and took these stills, and maybe it was a skeleton down there, not necessarily Sebastian, but it could be somebody who drowned in that river. But if you went back even the next day, he could have moved on, wouldn't be in the same place necessarily. They don't just stay still, and they get covered in silt and all the things. They said that it's quite murky, isn't it? So it's almost, if you don't go in there and then, you're not always going to find it, even if it is there. So, it really shows us the challenge of searching for people. It's a real challenge, isn't it? I do think the TV and films and things like that have made us impatient for results in investigations. But they just in general, especially when it involves finding a body, and it's different if somebody's been killed and the body's right there, then it's a different sort of investigation, isn't it? You're just trying to trace back to find all the evidence to find out who did it. But in a case like this, where you don't even know, really, to be honest, if anybody has done anything, if it could be an accident, it could be a runaway. Sebastian may not be deceased. He may be somewhere. Let's hope he is, but it doesn't seem very likely, but let's hope he is. But that's how difficult it is, isn't it, for law enforcement to... First thing they've got to do is find Sebastian before they can even really look properly at an investigative case. Where is he? They don't even know where he is, what happened, if it's foul play, if it's accident, if it's what, they just don't know. So that's before they can even start thinking about who did it, because they don't even know who did what, It's not like a who done it, it's like a who did what. Bless him, poor Sebastian, and his poor family. Anyway, then they went to the Cumberland River. Sunday, April the 13th. Approximately 6 hours were dedicated to a boat-based search along the Cumberland River. It began at approximately 2:30, proceeded along river right to the tip of Hills Island, and then the return route followed river left, concluding in the evening at the boat launch located on the southwest side of Old Hickory Dam, and it included multiple disembarkation points where both canine and human searchers investigated areas along the riverbank identified as potential catchment zones for debris accumulation, and these locations were prioritised based on their likelihood of retaining materials following water flow and flooding activity. So, despite thorough coverage, no human remains were recovered. Search conditions were significantly complicated by recent flooding, which had deposited extensive layers of mud and debris across the landscape. These conditions obscured the natural terrain and created substantial difficulty in visually identifying human skeletal elements, and the potential for remains to be disarticulated, damaged, and partially or fully embedded within sediment or vegetative matter further reduced visibility and detection reliability. Human skeletal material, particularly when weathered or fragmented, can easily blend into the surrounding environment, requiring a high level of attention and often specialized excavation or screening to detect. And while no positive findings were made during this phase of the search, the environmental challenges observed should be considered in evaluating the likelihood of surface detection and in planning future recovery operations. Very sad. And then there's like the glossary or whatever, or what would you call it, acknowledgements. So that's it. That is the report. So as I say, don't forget this report. It was from April last year, and although, the report is very interesting, and I'm sure maybe law enforcement found it very useful, but it hasn't resulted in a break in Sebastian's case, has it? So let's just have a look at some photos of Sebastian actually again. Bless him. His little face, thing is, Sebastian, not just Sebastian, or missing children especially, but missing people generally, but all, they deserve to be found, laid to rest. If Sebastian is no longer with us on the earthly plane, his family need to see him and bring him, they want to bring him home, they want to lay him to rest properly, bless him. Now, I've dreamt about Sebastian many times. Actually, in the time that he's been missing, I occasionally do dream about cases, that I'm following. Not every one, but this is one that I did dream about him. And I just dreamt he was running, like through trees. I'm not saying it means anything. I'm just, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that's what I've dreamt about him. Where did he go? Did he just run off and have an accident? Or did somebody lure him out and has he come to foul play? Has foul play been involved? Bless his little cotton socks. I hope one day his family get the answers. So I'm going to say a little prayer for Sebastian and all missing children, of course. That's all we can really do, is make sure their names stay out there. Remember them, hope that one day, some resolution will come. But listen, thank you so much for caring about Sebastian. As always, let me know what you think. What do you think has happened to him? And do you think we will ever get the answers? Do you think his family will ever get the answers? Do you think he ever will be found? And don't forget to subscribe, please. Like this video if you don't mind, and don't forget to press notifications. Then you'll get if there are any developments in this case. I would definitely be here to tell you about them. So thank you so much. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, may your God go with you. Bye.